Okay. Yeah. Hi. Okay, we are live. Welcome. We'll do the same thing as we usually do at this point. Welcome everybody to the Healthwatch Salford board meeting that's been conducted by Zoom in accordance with our constitution. It's been live streamed and recorded for YouTube. My name is Phil Morgan and I'm the chair of Healthwatch Salford, and I'll ask people to introduce themselves in the order I see them. So Elise first, please.
Hi everybody, my name's Elise. I'm the Knowledge and Support Officer here at Healthwatch Salford.
And Nisa.
Good morning, I'm Nisa Khan. I'm a trustee at Healthwatch Salford.
Jackie.
Hi, morning. My name's Jackie Lee. I'm Deputy Chair at Healthwatch Salford.
And Rimpy.
Hi, I'm Rimpy Batter and I'm a trustee at Healthwatch Salford.
Mark.
Good morning, I'm Mark Lupton. I'm part of the engagement team with Healthwatch.
Alex.
Morning, I'm Alex Leach. I'm the Chief Officer at Healthwatch Salford.
Scarlett.
Morning everyone, I'm Scarlett. I'm the Volunteer and Involvement Officer at Healthwatch Salford.
Holly.
Hi everyone, I'm Holly Manzora. I'm the Engagement Officer at Healthwatch Salford.
And finally, Jay.
Hi, my name's Jay Ahmed. I'm a trustee at Healthwatch Salford.
We may have Sam joining us. We haven't had an apology from her, but otherwise I think we have everybody here today who will be here today. Do we have any updated declarations of interest? If not, do we have any questions from members of the public? I haven't seen any.
No, we haven't, Phil. No, none.
Okay, in that case, we'll move on to the minutes of the last meeting. Are there any issues to do with the accuracy of the minutes, please? If not, can we approve them? Can someone say approve or nod or wave a hand or something? Right, I can see at least one nod there. The action log, there's nothing outstanding. They've all been dealt with, which is excellent. There's just one thing, if we can pick up on this here. I think the CQC were interested in providing a speaker for probably ideally this meeting, and that hasn't quite worked. Alex, do you want to just update us with that, please?
Yeah, so we've arranged for the speaker to come at our January meeting. Obviously, the CQC have an inspection framework that they have to follow, which is obviously a clash with our meeting today. So we've rearranged that for our next meeting in January.
Okay, great stuff. Move on to my chair's report. Just wanted to pick up a couple of things from that. Firstly, and I think Alex has covered in his report as well, but a big thank you to Imelda Redmond for coming along, and well done, Alex, for arranging that. Very pleased to have her there, and I thought it made the AGM work really well on top of what we're doing as well. Obviously, there's still quite a lot about Healthwatch in Greater Manchester. I'm really grateful for the support shown by Jackie, who's been part of the process at that level as well, and we'll invite her shortly to comment on it. In crude terms, what we're doing at the moment is we're using the quality assured framework, which we use for ourselves as Healthwatch to make sure our governance is up to speed. We're using that as a mechanism for testing the approach we want to take at a Greater Manchester level. There's, I think, 4 task groups working on this at the moment, and we're represented on 3 of them, I think. So that's in progress, and that will happen. The other thing that's happened since I wrote the report is that the integrated care board membership is in the process of being confirmed, and I've shared that with all the other health watchers in Greater Manchester, and I think we will almost certainly send a reply back saying that we should have a place on the integrated care board and some of the other boards and committees, as well as the partnership board, and that's something which we'll be doing later this week. And I think it's appropriate we are there, just if nothing else, to remind them of the importance of public and patient voice. Jackie and Alex, do you want to add anything to the things that are happening at a Greater Manchester level at the moment?
I mean, from my perspective, I can just add that I'm part of the quality assurance framework subgroup around engagement. So that's looking at how we're engaging with both the partnership and the system, but also stakeholders across the system as well. So we'll be taking some actions forward in looking at that further. So, and then just agreement with your points, Phil, around the ICB and requesting a seat for Healthwatch on that board. I'm in agreement with that.
Okay, thanks for that. Jackie?
Certainly, I'm involved in a different subgroup looking at other aspects of the quality assurance framework, SHORD framework, and it's really useful actually thinking about. It's useful for the group members to think about how, as a local Healthwatch, how we would use the framework, but also how collectively across Greater Manchester the framework can be applied. And actually doing the work on the subgroup, it's quite useful because you can see how collectively, as a collective, greater, it's a bigger force, to be recognised within the ICS. So that works it's quite useful actually. So hopefully it'll bring all the Healthwatch together. So there's just different meetings that we'll all present back in terms of how the whole framework will fit together from the local and then from a collective of Healthwatch. It's useful for me to be involved. It's nice to see how people are connecting.
Yes, I still think we have both some grinding through issues which will be resolved to deal with, and I think we still have some fundamental issues around engagement of a couple of Healthwatchers as well, who have, they are perfectly legitimate concerns about whether they want to be engaged in this at all, and if they do, what that does for their independence as a board. I think these are resolvable, but that doesn't mean to say that they will be resolved quickly or easily.
I think it's useful using the framework because it becomes more clear how, as a collective, is stronger together. I've certainly found that from the group that I'm in. I don't know about you. Found the same, Alex?
Yeah, I guess from an engagement approach, I mean, having that level of knowledge and appearance at a GM level is something that I think we need as a collective, and understanding how we can engage with partners such as the voluntary sector and also other local stakeholders in GM. So I guess putting our heads together and framing something around that is important, and that's what we're hoping to take forward as a bigger part of an event coming in later in earlier in the new year.
Questions, comments from others, please? Okay, anything else on my chair's report that people want to touch on? In that case, note that and move on to the Chief Officer report, which is a very thorough report of where we're at the moment. Thank you, Alex, that's really helpful. Is there anything you want to highlight before I throw it open to the rest of the board?
Well, I'll just take us through some of the slides. I've done it a little bit differently just to build on some of some excellent work that I think is going on within the organisation throughout our team. So just taking some time to go through that, and then happy to take any questions. So,
and if it's helpful for team members to contribute on the bits which is theirs, that's very welcome as well, by the way.
Has that come up on as a full screen?
Yes, we've got some faces at the side so we can see half of us at any one time.
Brilliant. Okay. So this report is for the months of September and October, and I think obviously with our work we always try and align to our strategic aims and objectives and vision as an organisation. I think that's always important for us as a team to reflect on how we do our work. And I think just highlighting on some of the strategic developments as an organisation, specifically operationally, just to highlight to the board that we are obviously a part of the ICS transition board and still involved in the governance subgroup. I think there's a conversation of how influencing the patient and public voice in shaping governance arrangements still needs to be described and discussed, and that's something that I wanted to take forward, and also that conversation with our voluntary sector partners as well. So that's still an action that we are looking at, and ensuring that there's a mechanism to do that within Salford, and I guess, you know, we can play a really strong part in that role. So in terms of other stuff, in terms of strategic developments, we've got our equality, diversity and inclusion action plan on our agenda today, and that's been really helpful to build internally, and thanks Scarlett for the support in helping build that document. We had our AGM, which was really well planned. We had our contractual commissioning meeting with Salford City Council, looking at our activity across the period. We held our financial committee meeting, and the accounts have been finalised for adoption at the AGM, so that's going through due process now. And then we launched our staff survey as well, which 100% of completion has come in, so that'll be reviewed under our business section of the meeting today. So in terms of some of the engagement activities and outcomes, here's just an overview of some of the activities that we've taken part in. We've got the virtual support toolkit coming up in a presentation, which has been really well received, and you may have noted that that's been shared through our safeguarding board's newsletter as well, which is really positive. Our last community forum was on the topic of dentistry, so we had Peter Denton come along talking about the GM work that happened, and moving through to the next community forum that'll be looking at equality, diversity in Salford, so that'll be our next focus. We've completed a review on face-to-face engagement across the period, and we did some specific engagement in Eccles, which was an open engagement session speaking to members of the public, and we got some really good learning from that. It was very much a positive session, and from those recommendations we want to now broaden our face-to-face activity within Salford, and I've asked our engagement team to look at how we do that in the new year, so we're engaging in all the neighbourhoods in Salford. So we've got a more on the ground approach to complement our virtual engagement that we currently carry out. The dental projects engagement has been really successful in terms of the engagement phase. As you can see, engaging with 447 people, which is a really high number of people engaging with, and that's not just virtual, that's on the ground, and that work has obviously been led really well by Mark, but also supported by team members to carry out some of that engagement. So a really positive piece of team working in the organisation. We've concluded engagement around our Greater Manchester piece of work, looking at NHS 111. So the data is now being shared with Healthwatch England, who are producing a report which will come back down to local level, which we'll share with the board and obviously stakeholders to highlight the experiences of, firstly, what does that look like for people, and also the 111 first booking system. And then just touching on the Living Well work that Holly's leading on. So we've done 13 patient stories around those experiences, which are quite detailed in terms of the patient's journey, both through the service and also how's that impacted their life away from the service. So that's actually had a really positive impact in terms of that work, and Holly's been feeding that into the system and the providers, and specifically looking at changes around the exit process for service users. We are going to be moving on to the staff side in terms of Living Well now, carrying out interviews with staff members to get obviously both sides of the story in terms of how that service is working. So on pause there, is there anyone from the team that wants to come in on any of the activity that they're currently doing, or they want to share our updates on from an engagement perspective?
I wouldn't mind. I'll speak. Just to say that it's really positive seeing Living Well taking each story, because 13 doesn't sound like many, but one story, like Alex said, it is really in depth. stories, and Living Well take each one really seriously, and with each one they make changes, and it's really important. So it really is more about the quality of the work, which Jay has emphasized to me, rather than the quantity. So yeah, Living Well are really good with making changes with each story. So yeah, that's all.
Thanks, Holly. Mark?
Thanks, Phil. I was just going to say, as an engagement officer, I'm really looking forward to properly getting out there, engaging again. And just to say that our little pilot exercise we did with the dental project, in all my years of doing engagement with Healthwatch, I've never felt like I was a magnet for people to come up to and have a chat with. Normally, you're having to cajole them a little bit, but everybody was like, "Who are these new people on the street?" So it was really nice to actually have them coming to us, seeing what we were there for, and quite willingly giving us their conversation and tales about dentistry.
Thanks, Mark. Rimpy?
Yeah, I'll just echo some of the comments that Holly has said, and Mark as well, just in terms of the anecdotal evidence, the qualitative data. I think that was highlighted to me, the importance of that at the Healthwatch England annual conference last week, just in terms of the insight that you can get from qualitative data, which is just as valuable and important in terms of informing new ways of working and services for people in the community. So I think that's really important. As you said, 13 may not sound much, but it's what you gain from that, which is more valuable, I think.
That's great, thanks. And thanks for that feedback from the Healthwatch England conference as well. Nisa, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I think it's fantastic what all this work that's happening, all these insights. Have we considered if we can maybe share it in a more formal way, so maybe publishing or as abstracts at posters, because I think this is hugely insightful. And although it can inform our decisions, actually, there could be wider value, actually. So I don't know if that's anything we've considered or might want to consider.
Alex, what happens next?
So in terms of the work that we are doing, and I'll just highlight here, the dentistry work that Mark's leading on, there is a formal report that comes out of that, and we are currently in the reporting stage, so that will be published, and obviously recommendations made in terms of what we'd like to see and changes being made. So in terms of the majority of our work, we do publish research reports with recommendations. In terms of the activities around the community forum, we do have minutes that come out to attendees, and also that's then the questions that are asked are also forwarded up to the providers, and we ask for a response on those questions. So there are two-way conversations. We don't publish those minutes online on our website, and that might be something that we could think about in terms of our transparency, and happy to take a conversation internally about that. But yeah, the majority of our work is published externally.
Okay, thanks for that. Anything else on this bit? If not, Alex, if you could continue, please.
Sorry, Phil, can I just jump in
sorry,
there?
Mark,
I'm sorry. So just to also mention that I've had a chat with Alex about getting, when we produce a hard copy of the report, with it going onto the website, also making, the PDF copy of the report on the website, also printing out some hard copies and distributing them across the libraries around Salford. So those people who haven't got access to technology to be able to view it online, or would prefer to see a hard copy, they should be able to go into their local library and see one for free.
Okay, that's really welcome. Thanks for that. And okay, Alex, over to you again.
I think we've got Jay with his hand up, Phil.
Oh, sorry, Jay, please.
Yeah, just very quickly, I ran into a lady called Michelle Henley yesterday. Henley? No, it's Henley. And she runs all the libraries in Salford. So if you wanted to do that, then it might be worth getting in contact with her. I'll pass on her details with her permission to you, Mark, and you can get in contact with her.
Okay, thanks for that, Joe. That's really helpful.
So in terms of the engagement activity, this is just looking at a forward view of our plans for the months ahead. As you can see, there's a wide range of activity that we'll be carrying out, and specifically just highlighting the additional activity that has come in on top of our business plan, which is the unmet need in adult care, which is a commission piece of work which we have been successful in, and that's understanding 3 stories, very similar to the work that Holly's doing around ethnographic research of that person's journey through assessment processes within adult care. So that's an additional piece that we're picking up, and Ali's leading on that. And then, as you can see, the key highlights are phases in terms of where we're aiming for in terms of those other projects that are part of our business plan. So in terms of volunteering, as you can see, there's been a number of opportunities and activities that volunteers have been involved in, both engagement activities, but also training that we've been putting on for our volunteers, and Scarlett's been leading on within the organisation. As you can see, we've had 37 hours of volunteering within the organisation in the period, and we've had 6 additional volunteers come on board with us within the period as well. So an induction phase, 7 have come on, and the majority of them coming through our Safer Salford lived experience panel, which we are supporting. I think it's always important to share some of the feedback that we get from our volunteers, and here I've just highlighted a few pieces of feedback that we've received, and I think that in whole very positive in terms of their experience that they're having within the organisation, and that is really pleasing to read. And as board members, that I think that's important for you to take away in terms of how their experience is being viewed within the organisation. So from a volunteering aspect, is there anything that you want to bring in, Scarlett, at this point?
Just to add that we've now got the 6 lived experience volunteers on our books. So hopefully at the next board meeting, I'll be able to share a little bit more of the activity they're getting involved in. I'm working with Aqua to capture how many hours they're contributing to the different projects they're involved in. And quite a few of them are involved in vastly different projects. So it's just a case of touching base with them and getting some supervisions in with them to collect this feedback that you're seeing now from different volunteers on what they've been involved in. So I'll be able to provide a bit more insight on that at the next meeting.
Yeah. And then in terms of involvement projects, so this is how we're involving people within the organisation, and just touching on the Youth Healthwatch project, which is a part of our business plan. We've now got a brief in place for that work, and a part of that initial brief is looking at engaging with stakeholders within November and December. So that's our main priority as an organisation, looking at what's already out there, and then how we can link up with partner organisations to start this project and get this live and tangible in terms of us as an organisation. In terms of the Speak Up Salford Fund in the period, we've had 3 further applications come into the organisation, and as part of those 3 applications, 2 have moved forward, and we're processing the application agreements as we speak, and 1 has dropped out from the process, so just making the board aware of that. And we've agreed to run the application funding timeline up until March of next year, so just to give some continuity in the fund. So that will be open until that point. We'll hope to bring an interim report to the board in March 2022. So just to give the board an idea of the activities that has been happening as part of that funding arrangement with those who provide that activity for us. And then as Scarlett has really provided an update on where we are at with the lived experience panel and our partnership working with Aqua on that process. And it's just to note that we'll review the arrangements in March 2022 in terms of what that'll look like in terms of taking that forward into the next financial year. So from an involvement side, is there anything else you want to pick up there, Scarlett?
Just to say that we've received a lot of help from other local Healthwatch in Greater Manchester with regards to the Youth Healthwatch, getting that set up. So I think that's a nice thing to highlight, that people from other Healthwatch have been so forthcoming with sharing documents and things that they've done to set up their youth watches. So that's been really valuable to take that forward.
Great. And then just a note on our communications, and I think it's always important to reflect on the work around our communications. And as you can see, we continue to have a high session rate in terms of our website, which is a really high number in terms of a local Healthwatch coming to us, and our social media reach in terms of how many people are engaging with our posts on social media. And I've just put an extract of a couple of posts that Elise has shared throughout our work, as well as the Trusted Voices project that we do in partnership with Salford CVS, which we do continue to post regular posts about. And then in terms of articles on our website, just to give a brief summary of some of the stuff that we're producing on our website in terms of blog posts, advice and information, and what that looks like to the people who are using our website. So that's just to give some reflections there. Elise, is there anything from your perspective that you want to update on communications?
No, I think you've covered everything, Alex. Yeah.
No, that's great. And then just to finalise before going into questions, just some really quick points. So moving into the next period, as an organisation, we've asked to be a representative on the panel of the Age Well tender, which is a process around tendering for monies in Salford, and we'll be a panel member to that process. So in terms of the specific of what that'll look like for us as an organisation, we'll have further discussions under part 2 of business. Just to note as well that Healthwatch Salford was a partner of the Stay in Touch service back in early March of last year when COVID struck, and we was a shortlisted in partnership with other organisations and led by Salford CCG and Amanda Rath's team for a Health and Care Champion Award. So we didn't win the award, but we were shortlisted for that award. So I think it's just noting that happened, and just thanks to Elise, who was primarily involved within the organisation, have been involved in that piece of work. And then finally, just to know, obviously it's Living Wage Week, and I'm sure we've all seen that going out Salford and the wider organisations. And I just wanted to know, as an organisation, we continue to be an accredited employer of living wage. So that I just wanted to note that, and that's my report. So if there's any questions, happy to take them.
Okay, thanks for that, Alex, and thanks to you and the staff for all the good work you've done. Questions, comments? No, I think we probably had them earlier as it happens. So again, note with thanks that report. We now move over to you, Mark, I think. You're going to talk about the virtual support toolkit. I'm not quite sure how you're going to share this with us, but I'm sure you will share it.
Thank you, Phil. Okay, so it's not going to be a death by PowerPoint, as sometimes they are. It's going to be a fairly short presentation, but I'm more than open to answer any questions that people have. So earlier this year, in one of the lockdowns, which seems like such a long time ago now, we kind of identified that some of the health and wellbeing support groups out in the community had stopped meeting with their members because they couldn't do it face to face. And I had a conversation with patient experience manager at the Northern Care Alliance, and they'd identified something similar with some of their health support groups as well, that just basically stopped meeting because obviously they couldn't get face to face. So we came up with an idea to deliver a project and create what we called a virtual support group toolkit, which was going to be a toolkit to help those groups mobilize themselves to using online facilities to try to stay in touch with their members. So basically what we did, we had staff from ourselves and Northern Care Alliance, alongside some volunteers, again from Salford Royal and in the community. And we spent a bit of time researching what was already out there up and down the country, what sort of toolkits and good practice guides we could have a look at. And then through various meetings, we kind of collated all of this and formulated our own good practice virtual support group toolkit for our area. We wanted to focus on sort of 4 main mediums, for want of a better word. So we were looking at Microsoft Teams, Zoom, Facebook and WhatsApp as a phone group medium, just to give people a bit of a choice and variety of how they can get their groups online and stay in touch with their members. So the idea of the toolkit, it was mainly aimed at group leaders. So it wasn't a kind of a how do you, for the very first time in your life, get onto Zoom or something like that. People had to have a little bit of a basic knowledge. This was more about setting up a group for other people using these mediums. So the Good Practice Guide, it covered different sections in it. So we had a step-by-step guide on how to set up groups, obviously how to set up the meetings in those 4 mediums that I spoke about earlier. Also, we talked about giving people advice on how to administer the setting up and advertising of the meetings. We gave examples of ground rules that people might want to adopt to make sure that their meetings run well and to time. We also gave good practice guidelines on safeguarding. So we kind of informed quite a few people who had already been using the mediums of Zoom, for example, just some ideas of how they can further safeguard their members, you know, keeping data secure, what to do if somebody actually says something in a meeting that's quite concerning, etc. We also had a bit of a troubleshooting page, so what to do if things go wrong. I'm sure we're all familiar with the the local council meeting that went viral. So we kind of gave people pointers on how to deal with people if they step out of line, for want of a better word. And we also gave them some ideas for further engagement. So this was a basic guide of just getting these groups online, but we did give them some further guidance for techniques that they could use, for example, breakout rooms, using the poll system and sharing the screen and stuff like that. So the toolkit, once it was finalized, we created it into a PDF, which is available to download off our website for anybody across the country. And we have had quite a few hits on it, and I've had a little bit of feedback from groups that have already been meeting and just said, actually, it's really good to brush up on our techniques and to obviously adopt some of the examples of ground rules and safeguarding. But we also had some hard copies printed, because one thing I was acutely aware of is that if you're trying to teach somebody how to navigate themselves around technology, you don't want them to be flashing from one screen to the next. It's not easy for me, and I'm a little bit more tech savvy than a lot of people. So we really decided that we needed to have some printed hard copies that people could open like a book and annotate on the pages, make their own notes, just sort of that they got the step-by-step guide there. So we got some hard copies that are available for groups to request, which we can post out to them free of charge, and they just need to get in touch with us. Primarily, these groups have to be within the Northern Care Alliance footprint. So we're talking Salford area, Bury, Rochdale and Oldham. But obviously, if we get any requests for groups outside that scope, we can take them on a case-by-case basis. And that's where we got to. Do I have any questions?
I'm sure you have. I've noticed Alex put the link in the chat.
Thank you, Alex. Jackie, you've got a question.
Yeah, I think it's great, because I think I suppose we've all come to use the different tools now, haven't we? You know, I mean, from a teaching perspective, we've been teaching now on Teams at Salford, and we use Blackboard and Collaborate, but we just take for granted. But you know, 18 months ago, or when we went into lockdown, we had to learn how to use all of these different techniques. So I think it's brilliant. I think it's it's great. I do like the guides, and I do like the way there's pros and cons of each that we can use. Yeah, well done.
Yeah, thank you, Jackie. Yeah, Jackie just actually pointed out something I forgot to mention. The pros and cons has been quite a positive thing, actually, where a lot of people have said they just couldn't decide which medium to use, but actually by seeing, we showed what's good about a certain medium versus what's not so good. And they're all good in their own equal way, but they don't fit everybody's sort of demographic or type of way of working. So thanks for reminding me, Jackie.
It also gives people back their own empowerment and for them to get back onto having those conversations and discussions that they might have left off 18 months ago.
Yeah, I did have some feedback from somebody actually, and they said that they picked up the toolkit off the website, got their son to download it, and they actually used it for family meetings. So it's still in my head, it's still within the realms of well-being because it still kept people connected.
Anything else from anyone? I've been looking for something like this for some time, by the way, and I will probably go off and steal it and use it for other things that I do happily. I will give credit, of course. Just I suppose one quick question: is there anything we can learn from this? You know, in terms of either our board meetings or other things we're involved in. Are there any things which, you know, having done the toolkit, is there anything from it that's learning for us as well?
I don't think so, because I like to think that we're quite a lead organisation in the world of online meetings. Even, you know, our board meetings, our community forums where we read out ground rules to attendees at the start, it's always welcomed, and that is part of the feedback I get from any online meetings that we do. Setting the scene is really, really important, and the feedback is that we set the scene well.
Okay, that's reassuring. I will definitely go away and read this afterwards properly. I'm sure others will. Anything else on this? If not, thank you very much, Mark. This looks like a really interesting, exciting piece of work. Thank you for doing it. We now move on to the business plan update, which Alex has circulated, which is mostly green with the odd bit of yellow scattered in it. And I'm sure we'll all look at the yellow first before the green. But Alex, is there anything you want to highlight from it that's green as well as yellow?
No, I think in the majority of the plan we're at green, so I think that's really positive. Just highlighting the area around gathering views, which is looking at implementing a listening tour, and this will be very much aligned to our engagement within localities. That we're starting to pick up face to face. So we are picking those conversations up now. And I think that's just a really important part of our business plan as we expand to more face to face activity. Just in terms of the yellow ratings, which are just to give board some assurance around the Speak Up Salford Fund. The reason we've yellowed that is just due to the fact of the getting to the quantity of that funding level allocated to 20k. The external uptake of the fund is due to being virtual for the predominant year has not been what we'd thought it has been as an organisation, although we are making really positive efforts to get into so many different places. So just giving some highlight around that point at being yellow, but we continue to progress that forward. In terms of the adult care piece of work, which is around domiciliary care services, there were a scoping timeline due to pressures within dom care at the moment, and as we're aware, there's some challenges within the adult care sector in general. So the external providers and the commissioner, highlighted that this piece of work was probably better done later in the year, which we have agreed to, and a revised timeline of that report coming in March 2022 now, hence the reason why that's on a yellow rating, although that will be achieved. And then in just terms of the dental services report, we have to go to providers on a 21-day notice for comments to recommendations. So by the time we get those responses back to us, will be in December when we publish that report. So I've just highlighted that as a yellow, just to say when we get that report published in December, that will then turn over to green as completed. So they were the main areas. And then just to say the introduction to the Making a Difference Toolkit, and this is all about the theory of change model. We've paused our work around that with Healthwatch England for the time being, which will be reviewed for the new year. So that's on a yellow rating, but that's everything to update in terms of the business plan update.
Okay, any questions or comments?
Yeah, I've just got a couple of comments. So first of all, it's great that the majority of it is in green. That's fantastic. The Youth Watch is something new, and looking forward to hearing how you're going to go about addressing those. I think that's going to be really exciting. The 360 review on the impact and influence, how are you planning to do that?
So as part of a 360 review, that'll be going out to not just our service users, but commissioners and providers. So hence that the process will be a short survey that will be going out to them to reflect on their views as an organisation that they have on us, and that we can take that as feedback, critical feedback, then to utilise and plan our arrangements into the next financial year. So that's how that piece of work will look.
Yeah, so that's stakeholders as well as our people that we serve. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, Jackie.
Yeah, just to add to that, part of the quality framework, the subgroup that I'm in, we're looking at influence and impact, and then how that can be measured. So we can certainly feed into the discussions when we've come up with the suggested plan.
The only comment I had is that the pressures on staffing in the care sector are not going to get any better, I don't think. And this may be a feature of whatever work we're doing in this on the domiciliary care. Is staff pressures will be profound, I think. Anything else on this? We're happy to accept this one as well. Oh, 2 nods. Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Action Plan, Alex.
Yeah, so this piece of work originated from the work we've done with the National Centre of Diversity, and one of the actions following that was to produce an action plan regarding how we would build upon some of those recommendations within that report. So taking some of those recommendations and also linking in with Scarlett, who is part of the peer network with Healthwatch England, we've produced an action plan to highlight the ways that we are going to take some of the actions forward around EDI. So really it's just for comments around the action plan itself, if there's anything missing, and then approving the action plan to move forward and implement internally. You're on mute, Phil.
Being too clever. I just wonder if there's anything arising from Rimpy's involvement with the learning sets that's helpful.
Yeah, so that started last month. So there's 6 sessions in total. So they finish in April next year. So each member of that learning set will have an opportunity to discuss anything for their own local health watch that they feel that they want some support on. So it's generally an experiential learning set. So we had, for instance, at the first session, we talked about what action learning sets are, kind of guidelines on how to involve and be involved and to give support to each other depending on what issue is being presented. So at the first session, one of the chairs, I think it was Buckinghamshire Healthwatch, so she presented how to recruit more volunteers into their Healthwatch and some of the work that they would be involved in. So we're not telling each other what to do, we're just advising, and which is really challenging actually to kind of give suggestions rather than be very direct and say, have you tried this, that and the other. So for me, I will get a turn eventually from now to April. So rather than me present, this is what I was going to suggest to you all, is rather than me present what I think we need to discuss, or I need to present at the action learning set from Salford, is there anything that you, I may as well ask you, is there something that you want me to present on your behalf? And then I can feed that back at the next, whatever the next board meeting will be. I might not get my turn next time, which will be in December. It might be January, February, March, April, but I will get a turn eventually. And I'll keep asking the question here at board. The actual topic, if we agree a topic, we might not agree it right now, you can email me your thoughts, but if we do agree on a topic, that might change as we go on. So I'll keep asking you the question here. But just something to think about. Rather than me present something, I might as well represent your views and take that to the action learning set.
Okay, can we digest that a bit?
Yeah.
And can you liaise with Alex primarily on it?
Yeah.
Scarlett, is there anything you want to add as well from your involvement in the peer network?
The peer network meetings at Healthwatch England have been really useful so far. Off the back of the September meeting, there was a presentation in that meeting from Healthwatch Wakefield, and I've since met with them individually to talk about volunteering, how they recruit people so that they have a good representative of the community in their volunteering team. So that's been an immediate kind of benefit of being involved in that. And they've been really useful so far in terms of sharing good practice, finding out what other Healthwatch do around the country to promote EDI. So it's been really good so far.
Okay, thanks for that. So I think what we're doing is we're agreeing the action plan for now, but we're noting this is, as ever, a work in progress rather than a final finished item. And that's really welcome. Okay, and thank you for preparing the action plan. I thought it was really detailed and involved and helpful, so thank you for that. I think we've touched on a little bit of this already, but the quality assurance framework progress, again, Alex, for you.
Yeah, so in terms of the progress, you'll have the initial action plan which we created and submitted to Healthwatch England, which was approved. In terms of the areas that I think to note for position where we are now, the induction process for recruiting board members, that was to be reviewed, and we've got a clear process around that now. So that will be signed off as green. That was for May 2021. We had around the volunteering in general around our EDI process, and this were quite specific to the readers panel, but I guess what we want to look at is our EDI across all our volunteers, and it's really pleasing to note that Scarlett's done some work around EDI, and now we've got a clear process of what that looks like in terms of monitoring when people come on board, ensuring that process is really clear for people. I think there's some further work that I need to take forward within the organisation of how we report EDI into board meeting, and that's something that I'm reflecting on. But as assurance on this area, that we've put that as green. In terms of core funding, there were an area around looking at our current position with our commissioners. We've had a discussion with our commissioners, and that will now turn to green in terms of assurance on that area. And then the only other point for this board, which is the September 21 action deadline, was around the review of the reserves policy. That's come to part 2 of the board meeting to review and approve. So in terms of where we are to date, we are in a green position for the actions that are required on the quality assurance framework.
Okay, good, thanks for that. Any other questions or comments on that? No, it's nice to see the progress, and I think we will in the new year be able to finally nail down the last remaining bits of this. The last item on the agenda today is representatives' feedback. Jay, is there anything to report back from the health and care scrutiny panel?
Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it to the panel as I was doing some of the meetings that day. I did send my apologies, and I realised later that we didn't have a representative there, so I do apologise for that.
We will pick this up probably under part 2 about appointing a replacement representative. Is there anything else anybody wants to report back on as a representative, or anything they've done which is of relevance today?
Just to say just going back to the Healthwatch England conference, I missed a lot of good sessions, I know, just because of work demands, but it was fantastic just to see Healthwatch England inviting everybody involved in Healthwatch, whatever tier, whatever level, whatever role they're doing, just into these key discussions, and inviting our insights and our comments, and hopefully taking those forward to something tangible. That was obviously my first conference, and it was I just thought it was very inclusive, very well run. Yeah, that was just my feedback on that. And then more locally as well, just a lot of fantastic work going on that you've all done. It's easy to read these reports and it might seem like lots of pages and 11 pages on one item, and you know, there's just a lot of work that's going on, so just that's great to see.
I can assure you that in my other board role I have somewhere in the region of 1,000 pages to read.
Yeah,
So
it's
I think
a lot.
this is
Yeah,
comparatively well measured and easy to digest. So okay, thank you very much for that. Is there any other business anybody wants to raise under part 1? No, in that case, I'll just echo Rimpi's points. There's been this shows a lot of really good work going on by all the team. Big thank you for everybody for that. We will now stop this meeting and resume at 11 o'clock for the part 2 meeting. Thank you all very much.